Does gender influence the role that individuals can play in the criminal activities? Are some functions already predetermined, or can the stereotypes be broken? Good evening everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nerd Pain Brand, series in which I try to make a creative living out of my 2 degrees in criminology. Today we are going to talk about one of my most recent passions that makes the destruction of the patriarchy its most distinctive emblem. Iconic and timeless, today we're talking of course about Sailor Moon. But before we continue, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe and hit the notification bell. It would be much appreciated. Moreover, please don't focus too much on the hairstyle that I have in the following video. It was made months ago after a terrible haircut. Now, how did I end up watching Sailor Moon and how I did become such an incredible fan of the series? It was something that always interested me while I was growing up, but I had some experience of being bullied because I was interested in watching Komodo no Mocha or Rosanna for the Italian audience when I was a kid, because it wasn't really adhering to the norm of what boys in the 90s should watch. That was Dragon Ball, that was the only thing that was, I would say, tolerated in my elementary school, because I do remember even being bullied for watching Digimon over Pokemon. But why that experience led me to abandon anything that wasn't boy-coded for the 90s. 20 years later, in Lucca, my girlfriend and I had the chance to watch a random episode of Sailor Moon. Well, Sailor Moon Crystal was a remake, and I wasn't trolled. I wasn't understanding anything about the plot because we were toward the end, and I didn't know anything about the previous seasons. But there was something that really glued me to the screen, and that was enough to ignite a spark of interest towards Sailor Moon. Then a couple of years later, I was with my girlfriend and we were talking about which series to start, and she suggested almost as a joke, Sailor Moon Crystal. And I said, yeah, let's give it a try, it sounds interesting. And boy, did he deliver. Taking the distance from the 90s adaptation of the anime and being more adhesive to the manga, Sailor Moon Crystal does an incredible job in explaining the magnificent lore of the world of Sailor Moon. But Sailor Moon is a product of its time, needs to be contextualized, and even if that kind of narration didn't age well, Sailor Moon needs to be rebooted and highlighted for the incredible impact it had on pop culture media, in particular on the concept of subverting the gender-based role, breaking the stereotypes, and for its progressive sexuality. Sailor Moon has as fundamental core the element of inclusivity and empowerment, making him, even to this day, an absolute must-watch. But what is Sailor Moon about? Written by Naoko Takeuchi, Sailor Moon is a Mao shoujo, the shoujo revolving the concept of magical girls, in which the story follows the middle school Usagi Tsukino as she befriends a talking cat named Luna. Luna gives to Usagi a magical brooch that allows her to transform into the paladin of peace and security, the legendary Sailor Moon. Throughout the series, then Usagi is joined by other companions, each one receiving a power associated for one of the planets of the solar system, creating a group known as the Sailor Guardians. Throughout the story, Usagi is accompanied by a useless boyfriend, Mamoru, that tries to provide some unnecessary and very unsuccessful help throughout the battles in his alter ego Tuxedo Mask. Now, how do we approach Sailor Moon from a criminological perspective? Sailor Moon represents a very interesting case, because thanks to the inherent value and inherent intent of the author to try to subvert the gender-based role, the mangaka outdid herself by giving consistently women the role of main villains of the story. In the context in which Sailor Moon was written, in popular culture media, women usually fall into 2 categories. It was a femme fatale, which's only purpose was to hide the main male boss by simply distracting the hero, using her sexuality, or in the rare cases in which women were actually the main villain, that ascendance to evil was justified by a form of hysteria. If we consider as female villains of the time, Xenia Ortrop from GoldenEye, or Catwoman from Batman, their role as villain were unquestionable, but it would be impossible not to notice that the way in which they were represented was extremely male-coded, exclusively thought for a male audience perspective. Trying to subvert the perception of women in popular cultural media, taking distance from the mainstream representation of women, Naoko Takeuchi takes a very bold decision in making and showing to the general public that women should and can take the role of proper villain. Because of this very specific point of view that was offered to us from the mangaka, Sailor Moon falls perfectly into the framework of what is called the feminist criminology. Feminist criminology is an extremely broad terminology I'm using right now, and it would be impossible for me to dwell specifically in every single derivation in 10-15 minutes, but I will try my very best to give justice to this incredible and interesting approach approach to crime understanding. In open critique to what was defined as the male-stream academia, the feminist criminology suggests a different approach, a perspective that takes distance from the classical study tainted by a structural patriarchal matrix. Specifically, according to the feminist theory, the element that needed to be reconsidered was the role of women in the analysis of crime. And they focus the attention on the fact that, according to the mainstream perspective, women were always depicted as mere victims. And that happened because the lens through which the role of women was seen in the life of crime was merely from a male point of view. According to the feminist criminology, women are not simply passive actors into the life of crime. They are not merely victims. But on the other hand, they can and do have an active role. And the reason why such role was ignored by the mainstream academia was because the researches were made by men, and the way in which results were seen and interpreted happened throughout a male-based perspective. Core of the feminist criminology, it's trying to shaking and readjusting the paradigm, moving the role of women from an ignored participant to the criminal phenomenon to the very center of the intellectual inquiry. What feminist criminology tend to achieve is try to reconstruct the paradigm in which society is based, criticizing that the one we are living nowadays is based on the concept of patriarchy and the unequal distribution of authority and power between gender based on the unfair principle of masculine superiority over femininity. As a matter of fact, study has supported the fact that women do play an active role in criminal phenomenon, and not only to crimes that have been addressed and labeled as feminine, as for example could be shoplifting or poisoning, but they actually indulge in criminal behavior that was usually attributed to men, becoming culprit of white-collar crimes, embezzlement, homicide, robbery, and street gang. But now, how do we apply the framework that is offered to us by the feminist criminology to the case study of Sailor Moon? With the sole exception of Prince Tamai, the Dark Moon arc, every single villain of the story is a woman. And therefore, every single one of them could represent an interesting case to perfectly apply the framework that is offered to us by the feminist criminology. Though, above all, I do think that one perfectly encapsulates the thematics and the core element of the feminist approach, and that is Sailor Galaxia. Let me explain why. Queen Beryl, from the first season, is moved by her love for Mamoru. Dark Lady is also moved by her love for Mamoru, which is, in that case, her younger father in a textbook Electro complex, but in the end Mistress 9 is trying to terraform Earth to revive her lover Master Pharaoh 90, while the vast majority of the antagonists are moved by a strong feeling towards somebody else, which doesn't undermine her role as villains. What is interesting about Sailor Galaxia is the fact that she breaks any stereotypical convention. Her dreams is her dreams alone. She's not defined by any relationship with any specific figure. She's not bounded by feeling. She's not trying to please anybody. She is the perfect embodiment of pure and untamed ambition. Now, in case you don't know who Sailor Galaxia is, let me introduce you to the focus of our analysis. The ruler of Shala Galactica, the guardian of destruction, Sailor Galaxia. Born on an unnamed planet, Sailor Galaxia lived her childhood throughout misery, up until the moment she awakened her sailor power, blessed with the lazurite crystal, the most destructive force of the galaxy. Destroyed her planet because deemed unworthy of her own perfection, Sailor Galaxia embarked on a journey throughout the cosmos, hoping to find a planet that would be worthy of her magnificence. In her journey, she arrived at the edge of the universe where she met Chaos, the embodiment of darkness, an entity who failed to become a star, that reveals to Galaxia the origin of the cosmos. Enlightened by the truth, decided to increase her power in order to one day subjugate even Chaos and becoming the ultimate force of the universe. Because of that, she founds her own empire, Shala Galactica, and started to hunt down every single Sailor Guardian to collect their crystal, increasing into its her own power. Final target is the legendary Silver Crystal, owned by our Sailor Moon, said to have unparalleled restorative abilities. Hoping to combining with her destructive power over her lazurite crystal, Sailor Galaxia aims to become the ultimate force of the entirety of the galaxy and expanding her authority to the entirety of the universe. Because of her untamed and pure ambition, Galaxia is the perfect example to where apply the framework of the feminist criminology. Her motivations are just hers. Her ambition is completely self-driven. Her line of conduct and criminal behavior is not shaped in any way by feelings or men. Instead, her ambition stands as an assertion of her autonomy and her independence, and as a form of rebellion against the societal norms. Sailor Galaxia subverts the gender-based stereotypes, embodying an unapologetic ambition and agency. It breaks the stereotypical role of being a pawn of the agent of darkness Chaos, as unfortunately was depicted in the 90s anime, where we see Galaxia being corrupted by the evil forces of darkness. While in reality, Galaxia openly chooses to confront it, aiming to control even the ultimate force of entropy of the universe. In a mainstream and mainstream narrative that sees women simply as passive actors in a criminal phenomenon, Galaxia flips the scripts entirely. Even her origin story, characterized by abuse and struggle, doesn't confine her to a role or mere victim. We can even read the act of destroying her own planet as the embodiment of her decision to seize control over her own destiny. We can even see, metaphorically speaking, the destruction of her own planet as a symbolic destruction of the paradigm of the male-based authority. The annihilation of a system that she sees as unworthy of her true person strikes a parallelism with the feminist perspective of dismantling the existing patriarchal institution. From the feminist criminological perspective, Galaxia's action can be interpreted as a critique to the inherently biased power dynamics within society. By destroying her own planet and forming her own empire, Galaxia subverts traditional power hierarchies, positioning herself as a dominant force of the universe, which also reflects a parallelism to the intent of feminist criminology that wants to change the perspective, moving the idea of women at the center of the intellectual inquiry. Moreover, the pure ambition of Galaxia can be seen as the intent of breaking the chain of gender-based role, usually see women as nurturing and caring, while projecting a new representation of a force of destruction to be reckoned with. Sailor Galaxia doesn't feel in a traditional representation of women. On the other hand, shows, throughout her pure and untamed ambition, that women can be an active agent of change. And now you have it. You know a little bit more about criminology than 10 minutes ago. And the next time somebody is messing with you because you are not abiding to societal norm, you can always, obviously, give them remember Sailor Galaxia and saying, did you ever consider that your idea of norm is based, shaped and biased by a male-centered paradigm? But what do you think? Do you think the paradigm that is offered to us by the feminist criminology does apply well to the case study of Sailor Moon and Sailor Galaxia specifically? Or other theories could have been applied? Please let me know in the comments down below. And once you're there, if there is anything more you want me to analyze, please also let me know. I really want this to be an open conversation. And if you enjoyed what we've been doing today, what we've been doing so far, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you want to hear me rant and discuss about things that do not exist on a semi-daily basis, don't forget also to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and maybe Spotify the second I figure out how to do it. So thanks again for joining me today, and up until next time, have a nice rest of the evening.